This podcast is part of E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience.
Hello and welcome to War Horses, the only college equestrian podcast that is rethinking Auburn's loss last week. I'm your host, Auburn Elvis. Let's talk about some college equestrian. Well, let's get right into the action. We have some meets that happened this past week, and let's take a look at those in our meet recaps. First meet to talk about, Bridgewater at Centenary. The prediction for this was Bridgewater 6, Centenary 3, and we can't really see what happened because this meet did get canceled. Not really sure why, but sometimes that happens. Kind of a shame because even with this score prediction, the Cyclones had a chance to win this one with it being at home and having all those advantages, and, well, they're not going to get that opportunity now. A meet that actually did happen is TCU at Oklahoma State. Now, the prediction for this one was Oklahoma State 12, TCU 5. Let's see what really happened. Fences went 3-2 for Oklahoma State. Flat went 3-2 for TCU. Horsemanship went 4-1 for Oklahoma State. And reining went 3-2 for Oklahoma State. That made the final score Oklahoma State 12, TCU 8. So this one ended up being a little closer than we expected. Typically, a strong team like Oklahoma State being at home, having all those advantages, they could really run up the score. But here we see TCU kept this close. If a couple of rides had gone the other way, this would have been a 10-10 tie. So good job to the Frogs, even in the loss. But for the Cowgirls, they continue to get it done at home, and they have won some away as well. So they're definitely one of the stronger teams in the nation right now. Again, I think we talked about this last week. It would have been great if they had scheduled some SEC teams, because then we'd get to see how they compete against the best teams in the country. Right now, they're sort of competing against that next tier. But again, Oklahoma State is doing everything that they're supposed to be doing, plus a little bit more, so can't really fault them for their schedule now that they're in it. The next meet to take a look at, Georgia at South Carolina. The prediction for this meet was an 8-8 tie with the tiebreaker going to South Carolina. We thought this was going to be really close. Let's see what really happened. Fences went 4-1 for South Carolina. Flat went 4-1 for South Carolina. Horsemanship went 4-1 for South Carolina. And reining was a 4-0 dirty sweep for South Carolina. That made the final score a whopping 16-3 in favor of South Carolina. So the stats thought this was going to be close. It was not close, not even remotely. Georgia has really good stats, and this is uncharacteristic of them. In fact, going in before this meet, Georgia was probably the most consistent team out there. We had seen Auburn not do too well on the road against UT Martin, and then they lost at South Carolina. And so we kind of figured, well, Georgia's probably going to do the same. In fact, Georgia might even get the win. No, they did not get the win. They did not even come close. This was never close. Just South Carolina whipped them from start to finish. Now, again, they're the home team. They're going to have all those advantages, but boy, they really poured it on. When things didn't look good for Georgia, they got even worse. So very little that the Bulldogs are going to be able to take away from this one and be proud of. But yeah, for South Carolina, they almost let the Auburn meet slip away from them. They did not do that with Georgia. They put their foot on the neck, and they just made sure they weren't going to lose, and it wasn't even going to be close. And so good job, Gamecocks, on that. Next meet to take a look at, Sacred Heart at Charleston. Now, the prediction for this was Charleston 6, Sacred Heart 4. Let's see what really happened. Fences went 2-1 in favor of Sacred Heart, and Flat went 3-1 in favor of the College of Charleston. That made the final score a 4-4 tie, which actually that doesn't add up. So it would have been 3-3, 3-1, and 3-2. I'm having a little trouble with this because you single discipline teams need to get your score sheets in a little quicker. They haven't gotten their score sheet in, but I'm going to go ahead and do the episode anyway. But anyway, I am sure that it ended up being a tie. Okay, it's a 4-4 tie, and Charleston did win it on the tiebreaker, 812-803. So good job to the Cougars because you did get the home win. That was expected. It was not as easy as it should have been, so hats off to Sacred Heart. They almost pulled off a shocking win that would have spoken quite well of them. But as it is, this was still a really good result for the Pioneers, so they're definitely one of the better teams this year. Moving right along, SMU at Texas A&M. Now, the prediction for this one was Texas A&M 12, SMU 5. Let's see what really happened. And actually, on this one, I'm going to go how it occurred in terms of the different meets during the day instead of just running through it, because I was following this one along on this one, and boy, it was exciting. Now, this one started out really good for Texas A&M. In the first half, they were up big. I think they had flat and horsemanship first. So in those first two events, A&M went 3-0 on the flat, and in horsemanship, they won that one 3-2. So that would have made the halftime score something like 6-2 in favor of the Aggies. But then in the second half, SMU made their comeback. They won their fences 3-2, and then they won the first 3 points of reining, and they had everything tied up 8-8 with 2 rides still going, and or 2 scores still coming because one of them had been held up, because you always get that in Western. But then those final 2 points did go to Texas A&M. Reining ended up being a 3-2 win for SMU, but those 2 points were just enough for A&M to seal the victory. That made the overall score 10-8 in favor of Texas A&M. Yeah, like we just talked about, this one, the stats did not think this was going to be close. It turned out being close, and hats off to SMU for doing that, because it looked like in the first half it wasn't going to be close. So Texas A&M, you need to kind of learn from what South Carolina learned last week, that once you get a team down, you got to really put them away. You can't let them hang around, because there are teams that are good enough that they will come back on you. Now, it's very hard to do that at home, and again, the comeback fell a little bit short, but boy, you got to watch out at A&M. For SMU, great job right up until the very end, but you got 3 of the last 2 and you put a darn scare into them. You just couldn't quite complete the comeback, but still, you weren't expected to do even this well, so this is pretty good. I'm impressed. Last meet of the week to talk about, Dartmouth at Charleston. So we saw Sacred Heart come over to Charleston and almost beat the Cougars. What would the Green do? They're the defending national championship, or rather, they're the defending national champions. The prediction for this one was Charleston 6, Dartmouth 3. Let's see what really happened. Fences went 4-1 for Charleston, and then the flat went 3-2 for Dartmouth. That made the final score Charleston 6, Dartmouth 4. Again, I think those are correct. I might have those backwards, but anyway, the final score was 6-4 Charleston. Charleston did win, so they had not quite as much trouble with the Green. I mean, it was close, but again, the Cougars won at home. That's what you expect in these close meets. First loss of the season for Dartmouth. Now that they're going on the road, they're picking up a loss here, and but this is kind of expected. So it was a good weekend for Charleston, and but Dartmouth did well to get 4 points. I mean, one more ride and they could have won this thing. So yeah, good job for all the single discipline teams that actually competed this week. So with all that competition, it's time to take a look at the official Auburn Elvis College Equestrian rankings. Now, we do have some changes this week. We had a few things where it's like, oh, this was a bit eye-opening. So without further ado, in the dual discipline rankings, number 1 is Auburn. The Tigers were idle, but they benefited from Georgia getting blown out at South Carolina. The Tigers, who had just previously gone to the Gamecocks, did much better. So it's going to be back and forth every week from now on between Auburn and Georgia. They're the 2 best teams. I mean, that's kind of a spoiler for who's going to be number 2 in the rankings. I'll just go ahead and tell you. Number 2 is Georgia. Yes, Auburn and Georgia are the best teams right now. They've done more than anybody else. Even with these losses on the road, they're on the road, and yeah. And even with Georgia getting blown out at South Carolina, most teams are going to get blown out at South Carolina. So it happens, and there you go. But Auburn and Georgia are better than everybody else. If you have anybody except for Auburn and Georgia in your top 2, you are a fraud. Okay, I'm just going to tell you, you're a fraud. If you're a voter out there, if you dare put anybody in the top 2 that isn't spelled Auburn or Georgia, you are a fraud. So don't do that. Don't expose yourself. Just hide it. Hide your fraudulent voting. Auburn and Georgia are number 1 and number 2. Okay, and then there's a gap. And then we get into number 3. And the 3rd best team in the country right now is South Carolina. So the Gamecocks proved that, yeah, they are good. When they get a team down, they can put them away. When they get a good team down, they can put them away. And they did that to Georgia. South Carolina doesn't have the pedigree that, or the resume on the road that Auburn and Georgia have. They're okay on the road. We would have liked to see them do a little bit better in some of these past road meets, but, they're doing exactly what's expected and maybe even a little bit more, and they are solid, okay? There could be an argument made of some other teams from time to time being the third best team, but overall, South Carolina's your third best team, okay? It's plain. It's plain to see. South Carolina, you're number 3. Number 4 is Oklahoma State. Now, the Cowgirls are here almost by default just because they only have one loss. They're winning at home, and they're winning most of their meets on the road. But this is probably as high as Oklahoma State is going to get. I mean, it would take a collapse by one of the top 3 teams in order for Oklahoma State to get any higher because, again, Oklahoma State's schedule is not good, y'all. It's not what you would want from a top team. It's really, I don't want to use the word embarrassing, but it's practically embarrassing. They should not have scheduled this the way they did. And maybe there's stuff going on behind the scene that prevented them from scheduling, but they didn't schedule a single SEC team, okay? None. And in modern equestrian, you got to have at least one SEC team on your schedule to at least just pretend that you've got a tough schedule. And I mean, when you look at these rankings and look at the teams that Oklahoma State has ridden against, ain't none of them in the top 5 or 6. It's all teams that are lower than that. So how good really are they? We don't know. They could be great. But again, we don't know. Anyway, moving right along. Number 5 is SMU. Now, the Mustangs lost on the road, but they did better than expected. The other teams that I might move into this spot didn't look so great, or they were idle. So, yeah, I mean, the next group of teams all kind of lost. So, yeah, SMU, you're number 5. They're good. They're good. They're not great. They do have that home loss to Auburn, which is kind of holding back their resume a little bit. But they're a solid team. They went on the road a lot in the fall, and now they're getting a lot of home meets. They did just have a road meet, but now I think they got home meets from now on out. They're going to do well, and they might even get up ahead of Oklahoma State. We'll see. Number 6 is Texas A&M. I'm tempted to put the Aggies ahead of SMU because they did just win, but it was a home win and SMU was a road loss, and they were against one another. And I know what y'all are thinking. You're saying, hey, Texas A&M just beat SMU. Shouldn't they be above them? Well, no. I'm giving SMU the benefit of the doubt because they lost to Auburn, and Auburn is number 1 right now. Texas A&M lost to Georgia at home, and Georgia's number 2 right now. If Georgia were number 1, I probably would have Texas A&M number 5 and SMU down at number 6. But for right now, no. SMU is number 5, Texas A&M, you're number 6, and that's fine, y'all. That's fine. Number 7 is TCU. The Horned Frogs look pretty good on the road. They did not get the win at Oklahoma State, so they're going to stay down here, but they're the second best team in the Big 12, so yeah, there ain't no way you should move any of the lower teams ahead of Texas A&M. I'm sorry, ahead of TCU, because that would be another fraudulent. You'd be a fraud if you did that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Okay, number 8 is Fresno State. The Bulldogs will round out our top 8. This signifies the teams that, if the tournament were held today, these are the teams that should get into it. Fresno State, yeah, you're number 8. Number 9 is Baylor. Now, a lot of y'all are wondering, why do I have Baylor ahead of UC Davis? Well, it's simply because Baylor is probably a better team than UC Davis. I mean, there you go. The Bears have racked up a lot of losses, but there ain't a darn one of you that could tell me that if UC Davis had ridden Baylor's schedule, that UC Davis would not have exactly the same record or worse. There ain't a single one of y'all. And if you try to tell me that, you're a fraud, okay? Davis is good, but Baylor is a tiny bit better. Okay, and Baylor is riding a much harder schedule than UC Davis, and that needs to be reflected. And some of y'all ain't going to reflect that. Y'all just going to say, well, Davis, because of the other things going on with Davis and the fact that, you know, they're beating up on every ECAC team. Well, I'm going to put the Aggies up above the Bears. I'm not going to do that because I know from the results, Baylor is a little bit better team. So Baylor is number 9. Number 10 remains UC Davis.
Hello.
So here again, yeah, I've got the Aggies down at number 10. I've got them ranked because they are easily the best of any of the ECAC teams. Some of y'all might have oh goodness, I saw where like South Dakota State was ranked by the rankings people, or UT Martin. Stop that. Just stop it. Okay, UC Davis is the best of the ECAC teams, and that's just what it is. Quit trying to slip the team that had a win recently up into the top 10. It's not. Quit making fetch happen. It's not going to happen. All right, over we go to the single discipline rankings. All right, we got some changes this time, but it's not a lot of changes. It's mostly where it is because things happened the way we kind of expected them to happen. You know what? Instead of talking about it, I should just get to it. Number 1 is Lynchburg. The Hornets were idle. They're about to go on the road to Sweetbriar, but right now they got the best resume. They're number 1. Number 2 is Dartmouth. No change in my rankings because, again, we expected Dartmouth to lose at Charleston, and most any team would lose at Charleston. There's a chance Lynchburg might not, but every other team would, so I can't penalize Dartmouth for losing at Charleston, especially when you consider what happened with the number 3 team. Number 3 is Sacred Heart. The Pioneers also lost at Charleston. Now, they didn't lose by as much, so some people would say, well, maybe we should move Sacred Heart up above Dartmouth. I'm not going to do that, although I will admit that if you do that, that's fine. You're not a fraud if you've got Sacred Heart at number 2 and Dartmouth at number 3. You're not a fraud. That's fine. I can live with that, but just for right now, I'm giving the Green the benefit of the doubt, and that, yeah, they're a little bit better than Sacred Heart, I think. But we don't know for sure, but anyway, in the rankings, these are my rankings. This is how it goes. Number 4 is Sweetbriar. Now, some of y'all might have been tempted to move Sweetbriar on up, and I'll tell you, you're going to get your chance to do that next week, most likely, if things go the way they're expected. But for right now, keep the Vixens down at number 4. That's where they deserve for right now, okay? If you move them up a little bit, okay, I guess I got to live with that. But generally, this is where Sweetbriar deserves to be. Okay, number 5 is College of Charleston. Now, some of y'all might overreact to, with recency bias, and y'all might want to just shove the Cougars way on up. Don't do that, okay? They won at home because it was at home. In the fall, they lost these meets because they were on the road, okay? That's what tends to happen. So everything is happening about as we expect. And frankly, because they almost lost at home to Sacred Heart, they're lucky they don't get pushed further down. They probably should have beaten Sacred Heart by 1 or 2 more points, and they didn't, but they're going to hang out at number 5. Number 6 is Bridgewater. Bridgewater, yeah, they were idle, but yeah, they're about the 6th best team. They might be a little bit better, but yeah, there's so many teams ahead of them. This is where they land, 6. Number 7 is Berry. The Vikings were idle. Based on what they've done, this is where they belong. You have to trust me on that. Number 8 is Swanee. Yeah, not a great year so far for the Tigers. Maybe they're going to turn it around here at the very end, but they ain't got a lot of meets to do that. So, yeah, they're going to end up somewhere around 6, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in the rankings there. And number 9 is Centenary.
It's a twister! It's a twister!
Yeah, the Cyclones, they had that chance to get a win by hosting, and for whatever reason, they didn't do it, and there you go, and that slipped away. They're probably their best chance of getting a win. But they're still a decent team, and we'll just have to keep waiting and seeing and hoping that maybe we can get more information about the Cyclones. Okay, well, that is the rankings. That's how the rankings should be. Again, I don't follow the NCEA rankings that closely. I'll follow it pretty closely once comes time for invitations, and I'll pick through and show them whether they're wrong or not. Sometimes they're really wrong. Hopefully they won't be wrong. The closer they get to mine, the less wrong they are. So they're doing better in recent years. Anyway, moving right along, let's take a look into the future with some meet previews. All right, our first meet is a single discipline meet, Lynchburg at Sweetbriar. I sort of alluded to this when I was talking about the rankings. If you really like Sweetbriar and you want to looking for an opportunity to move them up the rankings, here comes your best chance, because in the stats predict that Fences is going to go 3-2 for Lynchburg, woo, and that Flat, here you go, is going to go 3-2 for Sweetbriar. If that happens, that would make the final score a 5-5 tie, and we like to give the tiebreaker to the home team, so that would mean that Sweetbriar would win in a very close one. Now again, when this one is at Lynchburg, they won by like 2 or 3 points over Sweetbriar. So if this one ends up being a tiebreaker win for the Vixens, I mean, it's nice, but it's not as impressive as it would have been in past years. And I think some people would be giving Sweetbriar the benefit of some of the stuff they've done in seasons gone by. And we don't do that here on this channel. We just kind of say, hey, you are what your record is, and there you go. Moving right along, Minnesota Crookston at UT Martin. So we've got some good ECAC action going on over in Martin, Tennessee this week. Fences is predicted to go 3-1 for UT Martin. Flat is predicted to go 3-1 for UT Martin. Horsemanship is predicted to go 3-2 for UT Martin. And reining is predicted to be a 5-0 sweep for UT Martin. If all that does happen, that would make the final score UT Martin 14, Minnesota Crookston 4. So in the recent season or two, we've seen the Golden Eagles. They've improved. They're getting about 3, 4, 5 points a meet now in these ECAC matchups, and the stats think that will continue. So we'll see if it does. The next meet to look at, Delaware State, will also be in Martin, so they will ride against the Skyhawks, and here's what the stats predict. Fences is predicted to go 4-1 for UT Martin. Flat is predicted to go 3-2 for Delaware State. Horsemanship is predicted to go 3-2 for UT Martin. And reining is predicted to go 3-2 for UT Martin. If all that happens, that would make the final score UT Martin 12, Delaware State 8. So this one would be a little bit closer. That reflects the fact that, Delaware State, they're not bad. Even going on the road, they should be able to put some points on the board. But the stats do like UT Martin, especially being at home. Over we go to the next day, UC Davis at South Dakota State. Fences is predicted to go 3-2 for South Dakota State. Flat is predicted to go 3-1 for UC Davis. Horsemanship is predicted to go 3-2 for South Dakota State. And reining is predicted to go 3-1 for South Dakota State. And if all that happens, that would make the final score South Dakota State 10, UC Davis 8. Now this is a bit of a shocker, especially because I've just been telling y'all how UC Davis is head and shoulders better than everybody else in the ECAC. And here they are. The stats are saying, well, they're probably going to lose. Again, that's because it's a home meet for the Jackrabbits. We'll see what really happens there. If any of the ones that you wouldn't necessarily trust, this would be the one this week. I would say there's a good chance that Davis is going to really turn it on and steal the win on the road, but we'll see. The stats say they like the home team, and that tends to happen, but this might be a departure. We'll see. TCU at Baylor. All right, we just saw Oklahoma State go into Baylor and beat them. Can TCU do the same thing? Well, let's see what the stats say. Fences is predicted to go 3-2 for Baylor. Flat is predicted to go 4-1 for Baylor. Horsemanship is predicted to go 4-1 for TCU. And reining is predicted to go 3-2 for TCU. If all that does happen, I think you can see where I'm going. This would make a final score of a 10-10 tie, and we like to give the tiebreaker to the home team, and that would be Baylor. If this does happen, this would do several things. One, it would validate my endorsement of Baylor. At the same time, TCU is good. Even on the road, they're going to be able to get some points. So this one should be close, but the stats do kind of like Baylor. We have just a few meets to talk about remaining. Minnesota Crookston versus Delaware State. Now, this one would be a neutral site meet. They're over at UT Martin. It's probably going to be 4-on-4 just because you don't have as many horses in these. So take that into account when I give the score, the predictions here. Neither team is getting a bump for being at home, so this is just straight up based on how they match up against each other. Fences is predicted to go 3-1 for Delaware State. Flat is predicted to go 3-1 for Delaware State. Horsemanship is predicted to go 2-1 for Delaware State, and reining is predicted to go 4-0 for Delaware State. If all that happens, that would make the final score Delaware State 12, Minnesota Crookston 3. So again, the stats heavily favor Delaware State over Minnesota Crookston. Some of this is that if this were a 5-on-5 meet, we would expect Crookston to get a couple more points, but because it's only 4-on-4, unfortunately, they have less opportunity to get those points, and so that gives you your score prediction there. Okay, last meet of the week to talk about, SMU at Auburn. This one will be a big one for Auburn. SMU is a good team. Their record doesn't quite show it, but again, I've talked at length about how SMU had a tougher schedule in the fall than they do right now. Well, this is their toughest meet remaining, going on the road against Auburn. Auburn does really well at home with all the advantages of that. So, and the stats like Auburn. Fences is predicted to go 4-1 for Auburn. Flat is predicted to go 4-1 for Auburn. Horsemanship is predicted to go 4-1 for Auburn. And reining is predicted to go 3-2 for SMU. If all that happens, that would make the final score Auburn 14 to SMU's 6. So yeah, like I said, Auburn at home is just a tough nut to crack. Now, SMU has been able to do it in recent years, but again, unlike some people, we don't take into account years that aren't happening right now. We basically only look at the stats of this year. Well, we look at the stats of a career rider, so I guess in that respect, past performances does come into play. All that to say, Auburn's strong at home. They're probably going to continue that. If they don't, that'll be one more thing for Auburn fans to worry about. But if Flat goes 4-1 for Auburn, the writing is on the wall, because if you can't get but one Flat point away from Auburn, you're in for some trouble. So we'll see how that goes for SMU on the road, but at least the stats expect a big day for Auburn. Well, those are all the meets, so now we move into the portion of the show for our final thoughts. And I'll tell you, let's see, there's been some more recent news about UC Davis where now they've gotten some riders they filed a lawsuit alleging fraud because they were recruited to get there under the belief that the program was going to be continuing past this year, and they're alleging that the powers that be that helped recruit them would have known that they were going to be shuttering the program after this year, and that would amount to fraud. You know, I don't have an opinion on that per se, although it's kind of a dirty trick if that is true. But I will say, I've given more thought to the UC Davis thing, and because again, this is something that I think preoccupies a lot of us who follow the sport. Just what's going on over there, and what does that mean about the sport in general? Now, I've been a little critical of the league because the league, part of at least the reason cited by UC Davis is that because this has been sort of languishing as an emerging sport for so long, that UC Davis is losing faith and saying, well, we're going to put our resources into sports that have gotten out of the emerging status and are full championship sports with the NCEA, which then poses the question of, okay, how much longer can the NCEA live in this emerging status? It's becoming a put up or shut up situation for the NCEA. And I'll tell you, in my mind, the NCEA needs to be a lot more proactive. They need to hire someone whose full-time job is going out and recruiting teams to join the league. They need to, some sort of an NCEA evangelist who is going out, having these meetings. I know back in the day, Tom O'Mara used to fill that role, but then he got so good at it that y'all made him the darn president of the U.S. Equestrian Federation. So now he can't spend time getting teams to join the NCEA because you promoted him. Y'all didn't promote him. But anyway, he got so good at his job that he got into a better job or a different job. But that leaves a void, and I think we're seeing the consequences of the void. Now, again, we've added some teams, some single discipline teams, so the potential is there, but we've got to have a better effort on the part of the league. And I've been thinking about this specifically with the case of UC Davis, and here are some thoughts I have on this. The admissions department of UC Davis should really be going to bat for the equestrian program and challenging the decision of the athletic directors there, because when you think about it, what is an admissions officer's job? What is their job when they're looking to get kids to come to the school? What are they trying to do? What are they looking for? And I think you could boil it down to this. They are looking for students that once they graduate from the school, they're going to turn into alumni that the school is proud of. Okay, that's just a general way to phrase it. There are metrics, maybe it's a certain type of income or, a certain field that they go into. But in general, it's someone who makes a positive impact on the world that the school can look back on and say, hey, that person right there, they graduated from our school. They didn't graduate from the rival school or all these other schools. They graduated from our school, and we're proud of them. Look at them. They're great. So if that is the role, if you take that for granted that is the role of an admissions officer, and you start looking at, okay, well, let's look at the type of graduates that the equestrian program turns out. And at UC Davis, as with any of these equestrian programs, the equestrian graduates are, by whatever measure you want to look at, they're better. Okay, I'm just going to lay it out. They're better. They're better than the typical graduate that is coming out of these schools. And I'll even use Auburn as an example so that you don't think I'm trashing anybody. But if you were to pull the stats on the typical female graduate from Auburn, and again, I'm only saying female just because when we talk about equestrian, varsity equestrian, they're all female. So there you go. We want to have apples to apples. And you pull the same numbers on the graduates that were equestrian riders. The equestrian riders are going to score higher in the metrics. They're going to be better. They're going to have better grades. They're going to graduate with more honors. They're going to have more money. They're going to have more opportunities. They're going to be more influential in their prospective careers than the typical female graduate from Auburn. And frankly, y'all should be gathering the stats on this. The people at Auburn should be helping the NCEA out by going and getting those stats. Or this evangelist person that the NCEA should hire should be contacting all of the schools saying, hey, we need data. We want to be able to make the comparison between equestrian graduates and typical graduates from these schools. And so we need your help. Can you provide us with that data? Because if you could get that data from all these schools, and if you could statistically verify that, yes, the graduates who come through the equestrian programs, they are better alumni than the typical alumni based on whatever metrics you want to use, that is the kind of ammunition that you're going to need to go to places like UC Davis and say, look, you're not fully appreciating the value of your equestrian program, because that is a pipeline for exactly the type of graduates that you want here at UC Davis. And if you close that off, the school is losing something, and they're throwing that away, and those students will go elsewhere. They will go to other schools, and those schools will be proud of them instead of UC Davis. All right. Well, those are my final thoughts. That is all for this episode. I am your host, Auburn Elvis. Thank you very much for listening, and war horses.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on the E2C Network. On your way out, I want to remind you to stop by e2cnetwork.com. It's your one-stop shop for all our content across our podcast, YouTube channel, and much more. To stay up to date with us, make sure you're following social media accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While our content here may always be Auburn sports heavy, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. War Eagle.